Demonic Angel. Tonight I am going to do a book review about a book sent to me by one of my patrons, and he asked to remain anonymous, so that's what we're going to do. But I finished reading it and just stuck my bookmarker in here, whatever. It was a really amazing book, and it's basically just called Svengali, which means powers of mesmerizing. So basically mesmerizing meaning, influence. And it basically is divided into different books like attraction, health, wealth, and communication with the dead. There was a really interesting chapter about a guy who pretty much, we would call him a psychic medium, and he ended up killing himself because it just drove him insane. And that constant kind of stimuli, he interpreted it through music, and but the stimuli just got too much for him, and that the idea is that there's certain people who just are naturally like this. So like I said, we think of the idea of psychic mediums, but anybody who is like that or communicates with the dead, there is that real important lesson of this book. You can't let the dead control you, and that's also a belief of voodoo and other really interesting beliefs. That you can, for a period of time, allow the dead to influence you, and you can basically be a vessel for that. But you really have to know who you are as an individual in order to remain in control of you as yourself, so you can continue to come back to that, and you don't get lost in that, because and it really is true the way that I experience the paranormal world. The dead have a lot of needs and desires and wants, and it would be very easy to just get lost in that, because it's so much. But one must set hard lines and know oneself. But also that idea that once you have mastered yourself a little bit, that you can allow the dead to invite the dead into your life. So they're called the Loa in voodoo. It's just another word for ghosts, and they can do things for you. So I honestly didn't know about voodoo and things like that until recent years, but for years I have been going to cemeteries, roadsides, heck, you name it, restaurants, and inviting certain dead to come and be with me for a period of time. And after I set boundaries, they do things for me, warn me of things. An example is last year, right before we almost got into a really bad car accident. I chose not to drive, and I'm not the more experienced partner, my husband is, and I was gonna drive for some reason or another, and I didn't end up doing that because it was just banging on the walls all night. I was physically hearing voices, and it was very, very unusual, especially for it to continue happening. And it was just like, come on now, stop it, like I just kind of assumed it was more like the Halloween energy, the energy of ritual. But I had been having vivid dreams of dead people who did, look dead for some traumatic kind of way. And again, sometimes I do think, am I stressed, whatever. But they literally will come to me and warn me. And I'm open to that. And by offering myself to help them, they do favors for me. I've learned a lot about what I know about tarot, like, the individuation process and people in general. Also just reading living people by reading dead people first. By understanding their stories, it's really given me a broad view of humanity. So it is kind of, it's kind of like, having, remembering 3 or 4 lifetimes, although I only do remember one, but just that idea that it's this knowledge that goes beyond your time and your age and that kind of idea, that the dead, the 2 schools of thought, the dead kind of know things, that, they might be able to tell you the future. They might, have that kind of warning. And that goes back to ancient times, to ancient Greek and Roman beliefs about necromancy. That the dead can either warn, or you can, engage with them and understand something based upon their lived life. Also, I definitely do get energy from them. I know that I'm exchanging energy, and so I think that keep being very conscious is kind of the way that I'm even doing this on YouTube and remain sane, because I had to turn it into a conscious process. So that this book does really go into all those kinds of things. People from all over the world's experiences. There's even like a chapter about Rasputin, the Russian mystic. So of course, he's still mesmerizing. The witches, psychic mediums, shamans. After a period of time, we'll be able to learn how to look somebody in the eye, and usually, it usually starts with just being able to read a person, and then will kind of be, once you read a person, you can influence their thoughts in these kinds of subtle ways, usually just sharing your own emotional energy. But of course, you could turn this to consciously and like really attract somebody to you for, romantic purposes. You could attract people to you because you want people to believe in you. You're like, hey, I have something really interesting to say about tarot. I should be a tarot reader and listen to what I say, because I am unique, and I'm here to, implant my thoughts into your mind a little bit. It's not trying to tell people the way that they should believe, but just having a confidence and a sureness of oneself to project. So you are, basically projecting yourself onto a person, and that influences them in that kind of number of ways. A lot of people have probably more experienced this, where they'll look at somebody at the store, and they'll think, gosh, that lady, she really reminds me of my grandma. I wish I had heard from my grandma. And then you get a phone call. It's that the influence of the synchronicity. So it's kind of almost like, hey, I was open enough to get that little hint that I would be receiving the call soon. Or just, do you influence the events? There's no hard line of, what is real reality, and what is, subjective, subconscious, dreamlike states. we're always kind of in some altered state or another. When we get tired, hungry, whatever, you have feelings for somebody, you want to project confidence. You want to go on a job interview, you project confidence. There's that moment of either looking somebody in the eyes or being so sure of yourself that people see it in your eyes. And this kind of does go in this book about how does it apply to the dead, that by being so sure of yourself that you can protect yourself, and you'll be able to still have your own identity, and you can control them, not them controlling you. And I'm not talking about abusing the dead, but just I'll give you a couple of examples. This one guy I know, I would say that he's definitely a psychic medium, Christian kind of fellow, but he definitely, his house is pretty haunted, and he gets really fascinated by it. So he'll try to record it at night. If he's home alone, he tries to record it. And a lot of it ends up being he can just hear the help me, and they tell him the same kinds of messages, we're down here. This person did it. And ghosts do have very important messages, but as long as they can get your attention, they're draining your energy, and then they'll just continue to do that. And because this gentleman is an empath, he has a lot of energy and he's aware of them in a subtle level. They just are trying to take advantage of that. He's not in control and saying, hey, bottom line is I'm going to bed, and I have my spirit guide, spirit guardian, and that's it. You're not allowed to bother me right now, because when I'm in bed, I'm resting. And there's a time and a place to listen to dead people, but he just looks tired. And then he was even saying to me that now he likes to go camping, hiking, and hears voices from nature, which in his case I suspect are dead people following him home, and they're just constantly yelling for help to him, help. And I'm like, hey, you need to have a bottom line, or this is just literally going to exhaust you, drive you insane. Ghosts simply do want energy many times, and one must keep that in mind. And by knowing who you are, you could safely engage with the dead. It's very important to be confident in necromancy to ensure that your bottom lines are respected, and you remain whole as an individual, just open enough to help, to hear a message, to basically just like what I do, project myself as a psychic medium and see what I think the needs of this individual ghost are. And I know that not everybody can do that, but if you're aware of the dead and in some way, protect yourself and be very confident, because otherwise they can easily possess you, influence you in a way that is like oppression, possession. It's just really madness. So that's the negative side of the paranormal and of necromancy. The positive side is you can get the dead to be your friend. just by learning about an individual life, it's so touching to learn what was important to a person and why, what their regrets were. And it really has enriched my understanding of the human race so much that I really do love applying it to tarot. Thousands of faces, stories, tragedies, triumphs that I can put together through my own personal experience. And of course, this book has helped me a lot because I didn't really, I don't really know what to exactly call what I do and think other than necromancy. Let's see. It just says Svengali, Secrets of Influence, Roman. So it is, talking about how to attract, how to become healthy. But, and it goes into like practical ways that this applies, but then also in these kinds of necromantic ways. So that you can use, charm and charisma and must apply that to being a confident necromancer. It was really, really awesome of my patron. And if you really, if you're interested in voodoo, psychology, honestly, mesmerizing, just other people's experiences with being a psychic medium, necromancer, I would pick this book up, and I think you could get it for a good price. I mean, even somewhere like Amazon. I've got plenty more reading to do, but it's a real straightforward, it's a very fun book. I tore through it in a few days. But that's just because it wasn't like an Aleister Crowley read where you get a little bit bored. It's straight through, very fun. And it switches subjects, but that's kind of that fast pace. So anyway, if you want to, you can check out my Patreon page, which is linked in the description below. I'll put up my Patreon content within the next few days, and I'll talk to you guys later.